Good evening and welcome. You're watching the NewsTrack. I'm Rahul Kanwal. How transparent is the functioning of the judiciary? How corrupt do citizens think our judges are? This debate has been raging all through this week. We'll bring you the results of the Sea Voter PSE data on how citizens perceive the functioning and the level of corruption in the judiciary on tonight's edition of the NewsTrack.
Cash scandal quakes judiciary. Justice Verma faces probe. Has image of judiciary taken a hit? Do citizens think courts are corrupt? First tracker on perception of judiciary. Political stock exchange.
One of the biggest scandals to hit the Indian judiciary is getting bigger. Justice Yashwant Varma is set to appear before the Supreme Court appointed probe panel in the Cash Hall case. Justice Verma has denied charges, but at least 5 bar associations have sought a meeting with the Chief Justice of India. They want criminal proceedings to be initiated against Justice Yashwant Varma. Nalini Sharma and Shrishti Ojha from our Law Today Bureau with this report.
The probe into the cash recovery at High Court Judge Yashwant Varma's residence is intensifying. India Today has exclusively learnt that Justice Verma will be appearing before the Supreme Court appointed 3-member inquiry panel to answer all questions surrounding the Cash Hall. On Thursday, Delhi Fire Chief deposed before the committee. Sources say that probe is set to be expedited.
Sources have told India Today that during the first 2 days of the inquiry, the judges have gathered several photos and videos from the location as well as photos and videos that were made by the first responders as part of the evidence in the case. All of this evidence has been handed over to the experts for their analysis. Sources have also indicated to India Today that help from forensic experts is being taken by the inquiry panel to adjudge the authenticity of the photos and videos that are available to them in the form of this evidence.
Meanwhile, the spotlight is also on Justice Yashwant Varma's personal secretary, who allegedly asked Delhi police officials to leave the judge's residence on the night of March 14th after the fire incident. Heat is mounting on Justice Verma. Presidents of Bar Associations of Allahabad, Lucknow Bench, Karnataka and Jabalpur Bench have written to the Chief Justice of India. They are demanding criminal proceedings against Justice Verma.
We have told the collegium of 5 judges, including the Chief Justice, that 1, the transfer order must be withdrawn. 2nd, no work must be assigned. So they have clarified that no judicial work is assigned to him, but he has just been transferred to Allahabad High Court. And 3rd is that the normal processes of investigation must be taken to its logical end, and the criminal law must be set into motion. And they have assured us that the investigation is on.
The issue is also echoing in the Parliament. Congress MP Manish Tiwari has demanded a response from the Law Minister.
The Chief Justice of India has appointed an in-house inquiry. I think we should respect the process. We should wait for that report. But in the meanwhile, the Law Minister should come to this House, and the Law Minister must relate the chronology of events as they have transpired. What actually transpired? What does the government know? Why is the government not making a statement before this?
The factum of recovery money from the High Court judge is really eroding the confidence on judiciary. Sir, judges are also public servants like us. This judge transferred from Delhi High Court to Allahabad High Court. This will not resolve the problem. These high courts, Allahabad High Court, Calcutta High Court, like these courts cannot be the dumping ground.
The cash scandal has also reignited the debate on the NJAC. But government sources say there is no plan to bring back the act that was deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court anytime soon. With Nalini Sharma and Shrishti Ojha, Bureau Report, India Today.
The judiciary is in the news this week for all the wrong reasons. What do citizens across the country think of the level of trust and transparency in the functioning of the judiciary? To talk about this in this special edition of the Political Stock Exchange, we have a set of questions around people's perception of the Indian judiciary. Before I come to my first set of responses, I want to get you to meet our guests for this broadcast, starting with Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate in the Supreme Court. With us in this broadcast is one of India's foremost RTI experts, Anjali Bhardwaj, Governing Council Member of Common Cause. We have with us on this broadcast leading advocate Hitesh Jain, and I have Mahima Singh from the Congress Party of India. So let's just get started. I want to take the first question. Do you trust the judiciary to deliver justice to all Indians? This was the question, and you'll see it in three parts. You'll see responses amongst India Alliance voters, you'll see NDA voters, and you'll look at overall. But what I'd broadly be looking at are the overall numbers, because this is one series of questions where whether you are an India Alliance voter or an NDA voter, there isn't that much of a difference. There are marginal differences, but not that much. Naturally, India Alliance voters more distrusting of the judiciary, but by and large, they're tending in the same direction. So overall, 3 out of 10 respondents in this Sea Voter India Today poll said that they have full trust in the judiciary. So 3 out of 10 saying full trust. 12% saying trust to a great extent. So 42% say they have good trust in the judiciary. Now you've got 22% who say they don't trust at all, and 26% who say they don't trust very much. That's about 48%, almost half the respondents saying they have serious trust issues with the judiciary. Now Sanjay Hegde, this is quite alarming. Forget the political split between India voters, NDA voters. Just look at this number. 48% of the voters feel they have trust issues with the judiciary. That's a big number. I thought there'd be some kind of a trust problem, especially on the back of what happened with Justice Verma. But if half the respondents don't trust the judiciary, either fully or to a great extent, as a leading light of the bar, how alarmed are you, Mr. Hegde?
Well, I am alarmed, and I'm not the only person who is alarmed. You must, you may recollect that only yesterday Justice Oka said something similar, that we cannot take for granted the fact that the large majority of Indian people trust us. There are several reasons for the lack of trust. One thing that I can think of right now is that in the backdrop of what has happened with Justice Verma and the video that has come out, it may be that the figures are inflated. Sure. But at the end of the day, it is how does the system behave? And please also look at the fact that very few people actually end up in the High Court or the Supreme Court. It is the district judiciary, it is the judiciary at the state level, which is the beginning and the end of most people's encounters with the justice system. We have a problem at all levels, but we also have a problem where we have not invested enough in creating judicial infrastructure.
Okay, I think you make an important point. It's not how the...
Just 1 minute. Let me quickly finish. We have about 15 judges per million, where we should have at least had 100. So what happens is that courts are overcrowded, cannot deliver, and in a sense they are created sick but commanded to be sound. So you will have these figures.
That's an important point you make. Created sick but commanded to be sound. Hitesh Jain, 48% saying they have trust issues with the judiciary. Only 1/3 feel that they trust the judiciary fully. Now this is the ultimate institution. I mean, this is the one institution you expect will deliver justice if you and I are in trouble. If this is the level of distrust, how alarmed are you by, at this moment, the level of distrust that we are seeing among citizens?
Actually, this alarming reasons have been there for some time. According to me, I pick 3 reasons. 1, delay. 2nd, access to justice. And 3rd, cost. Yes, Justice Verma's incident has come, but I think delay, access to justice, and the cost, it's very prohibitive. And if you look at the structure of the judiciary in this country, it's like a pyramid-like structure. You have like 34 judges at the top, like the Supreme Court. You have close to 1,900 judges at the High Court level, and you have close to 25,000 judges at the District Court level. Well, if you will see, most of the delay is at level 2 and level 3. So what was also expected, while we focus on different aspects and all, but there has to be some sort of a supervision both over the High Court and the District Court, and one should see the quality of the verdicts that is coming, the kind of adjournments that are happening. Even in the High Court, it is very, I mean, like you see, like matters are getting adjourned for months and months. So I think these are the reasons where people are really concerned, and therefore they have not started, they do not trust the judiciary, and they feel that out of court settlement, or they use, I mean, like forums where instead of going to court, they are looking at every other forum.
Sure.
To
So let me,
solve their
that
problem.
being said, come to the next question on this broadcast, which is to do with whether citizens think that the judicial system favors the rich and the powerful. So when this question was asked, do you think the rich and the powerful are treated differently from ordinary Indian citizens? Alarming is that 56% of the overall respondents, cutting across different categories of voter responses, both India and NDA voters, say that yes, the rich and the powerful are treated differently. No is only 18%. Anjali Bhardwaj, this is the second very alarming response. It's not the fact that some people think that the rich and the powerful are treated differently. This is 6 out of 10. Compounded to this, 48% say they feel distrustful towards the judiciary. Now those, from anybody's perspective, not just if you're within the legal system, even if you just look at the legal system from the outside, that's a very alarming number, Anjali Bhardwaj.
Yes, indeed, Rahul. And I think that both the statistics that you have read out so far need to be seen together in many ways. I think the question of judicial delay and judicial corruption is something that people have been concerned about in the country. Also, the problem of lack of adequate independence of the judiciary, especially when the executive at the center is strong. I think that's also something that a lot of people have been concerned about. Of course, the recent kind of picture that we saw with notes burning and, those videos that have come out surfaced, again, it reinforces the fact that, only if you have a lot of money can the judicial system probably respond in a timely and in a favorable way. I have to say that by and large, people do have faith in our judiciary in the country. But these problems are very much around. Even when the Supreme Court judges came out in an unprecedented press conference and talked about lack of autonomy of the functioning of the court, the allocation of cases, I think people have seen, they have engaged, and there is a general feeling that the lack of trust that you talked about, and the fact that the system seems to work really for the rich and the powerful. Also look at the kind of issues where we see judicial delays, Rahul. The electoral bonds case, for example, became something that really captured people's imagination. And, people saw that it took nearly 7 years for that case to be heard. There are so many other matters, and of course, people's lived experience, which Sanjay talked about, that, a lot of it is also at the lowest levels of the judiciary, where Tariq pe Tariq is something that people have really associated with the judicial system. I just want to also add that the lack of transparency and the fact that the judicial system seems to be a very, very opaque system where nobody really gets very much of an idea of what is happening, whether it is at the stage of appointments of judges or how cases are being allocated, how many cases are being allocated to a judge, to a bench on any given day, or it is even the grievance redress, the complaints mechanism, or even the assets and liabilities of judges. All of these things, I think, add up to really create a picture for people where they feel that the judiciary is not, not all is well.
So, building on what Anjali Bhardwaj is saying, I want to come to the next question. In your opinion, how transparent is the judiciary in India? You know, this is a very critical insight emerging from the Sea Voter data, where 34%, 1 in 3 respondents say not transparent at all. 40% think only partially transparent. It is just 17% of the respondents. And again, as I said, whether you're an NDA voter or an India voter, it usually isn't like this on almost any other series of questions where they feel the same way across political affiliations. But you've got only 17% saying they think the judiciary is completely transparent, 34% saying not transparent at all. Mahima Singh, this idea that it's a black box, the points that Anjali Bhardwaj was referring to, that you don't know who's getting how many cases, how much money judges make, their assets, their liabilities, all of that not being addressed and known fully raises very serious questions of the level of transparency in our judiciary today, Mahima.
Before I come to address the instant question you've just asked, I would, also take into consideration the first two questions that you had asked, and I am absolutely, in resonance with the voters of this vote, and so are Justice Oka and Justice Gautam Patel of the Bombay High Court, when they say that the judiciary is, Indian judiciary is in its free fall right now. And if you please, I would like to take you through two illustrations before I make my point here. You see, there was one Mr. Balesh Dhankar, the president of BJP's Overseas Friends organization in Australia, who's been just convicted for, wrongdoing to some women and has been sent to the prison for 40 years. And here in India, we have one Mr. Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. To file an FIR against him, it took these Indian wrestlers, women, to approach the Honorable Supreme Court and get the FIR registered, and he is a re-elected MP here. So you see, we have to talk about trust, we have to talk about transparency, we have to talk about budget allocation, we have to talk about how the state is looking at the judiciary and how the state is treating judiciary as an institution. While Honorable Leader of Opposition Shri Rahul Gandhi persistently makes this point in the Parliament and elsewhere, that all the institutions in India, including the judiciary where separation of powers is required, are under immense pressure, are being influenced by the government. The same point has been made by the judges today when they are saying that we are seeing the worst times of the Indian judiciary. And that is also reflected in your voter data.
Let Hitesh Jain, who was shaking his head vehemently in disagreement, respond to what you're saying.
Hold on.
Mahima Singh from the Congress party, Hitesh Jain, making the argument that it's the government that is interfering in the functioning of the judiciary, which is why judges aren't being able to do their job. Mahima, I'll come back to you for a follow-up in just a moment. Let Hitesh Jain complete his argument. Hitesh, go on. Hitesh.
Rahul, we are discussing serious issues. This is not about BJP or Congress. So if you really want to address the problem, first we have to get out of this BJP Congress every time on all the matters. As your survey shows, both the NDA voters and India voters, there is no difference in what they are thinking. So the common public is aligned. It is netas in the studio who like to look at from the prism of politics. I'm surprised civil activists like Anjali Bhardwaj also picks up one case. But let me give you a data where the problems are. 40% of cases are land-related eviction matters and all. You want to take a possession of your house, the landlord-tenant matters, which goes into 20 years. Simple things like motor accident claim, like you get an accident, people have died or people have suffered injuries and all. Look at the data. One should look at the judgments that are being delivered by Justice Karol. So before he gives the judgment, he gives 3 columns. 1, time taken in the trial court. 2nd, time taken in the High Court. 3rd, time taken in the Supreme Court. Now that data will tell you, like motor accident claims for 40,000, 50,000, 1 lakh rupee, you have filed the cases in 1990 and they're languishing in 2020. It is these cases where the common man is concerned, where there is a delay. That is where the problem. Now, bail-related matters are concerned. They are talking about under trial. We try to look at the political cases and all, where the common man was not concerned with how much time electoral bond was case was taking. Common man is thinking whether I am going to get my possession, whether I am going to get my bail. There are under trials who are languishing in the jail. So look at the quality of the verdicts and all. It is this matter where common man is suffering.
You're saying it's cases that concern the common man which really shape perception about the judiciary, and the likes of Mahima Singh, so I'm going to give her an opportunity to respond, are unnecessarily looking at this from a political prism. It's a institutional concern that needs to be looked at more seriously. Let Mahima respond to that.
The common man is also looking at Rahul. Why does a Ram Rahim get a parole every time there's an election? Why is the BJP government in Haryana not opposing his paroles? The common public also looks at the budget that is allocated by the governments for the respective judiciary institutions in states and by the union. And let me tell you, by the way, that Telangana today has the highest spending per capita, that is 3,047 per capita. What are the other states doing about it? Why is the union government not increasing the budget allocation on the institution judiciary? Why is the government not doing enough to cast away the aspersions that are constantly overshadowing the judiciary about its pressure? You remember the Chandigarh mayor case? The Chandigarh mayor case, the judge who adjudicated that matter was transferred. You remember, so many other cases where the judges, and let me tell you, in the last 11 years, this trust deficit in Indian judiciary can be summed between two names, that is Justice Loya and Justice Ranjan Gogoi. Let me leave it at that for now.
Okay, you are taking this in a very political direction and talking only about what happened in 11 years. Sanjay Hegde, is that even fair? Because, I mean, these issues with the judiciary have been building up for a while. To now just look at it as a NDA versus UPA prism, is Mahima Singh being fair, or is she debasing this debate and really not looking at the structural questions and challenges, as Hitesh Jain says, we need to focus on?
Well, I think neither Mahima nor Hitesh will like what I say. I think that the current government is only doing a bad version of what the Congress did so many years ago in the 1970s. So it's like that. Whenever there is a powerful government, they want a judiciary made to measure. That's a phrase from Mr. Palkiwala. They want their people appointed. They do not want any people appointed who are likely to go against their philosophy or against their interests. So we do not, and this is where the question of the independence of the judiciary comes up. We need fiercely independent people who keep their party positions aside.
But most of the recommendations in the way that the judicial appointments happen are done by judges themselves. So then you're blaming the government for picking the judges and filling it with its own people. At this moment, judicial appointments happen through the judiciary.
Well, equally, any judge whom the government doesn't approve of doesn't get appointed. You have Saurav Kirpal, you have John Satyan, you have a whole host of people.
Yeah, but it's not like they can stuff it with their people. But Sanjay, the argument you made was the government stuffing the judiciary with its own judges. That's not true, because the base recommendation comes from within the judicial system.
Yes, but the judiciary is told that unless you give us recommendations that we agree with, those appointments will not go through.
Let Hitesh Jain respond that the government is trying to stuff the judiciary with people who are sympathetic to its cause, which is one of the reasons why the quality of judges and the quality of belief that people have in our judges is falling. Hitesh.
Well, actually, polarized debate cannot yield any solution, because I am looking at this purely from the institution of the problem of the institution and purely as a lawyer, someone who has appeared for last 30 years in the court, in the trial court and all. So basis that experience I am sharing. So the first thing, if you really want to improve the institution, we have to rise over this polarized business of this is right and this is wrong, because in last 30 years, it is the collegium system that has taken the control. If that is the case, these are the same people, they challenge the NJAC. I mean, one could have supported the reform, somebody could have supported NJAC with the proper reforms or with some suggestions and all. So you don't want NJAC, you want collegium, then you blame the government. It is the collegium that is appointing. And I will tell you, there is the answer Suppose today it is a collegium system set up by the Supreme Court. And if you are saying that collegium is picking up the government appointee, then this is a clear evidence that the collegium system has been failed and this has to be replaced. Now, the same set of contrarians, they support the collegium system. So I fail to understand what do they want. I mean, when a system has failed, as I mentioned to you, Supreme Court and High Court, you're talking about 34 and 1900 judges. At the base of the pyramid, District Court, there are 25,000 judges. Now, all these people are not political appointees. It is that 25,000 at that pyramid where it is taking.
Okay, so let me take the questions that we have on the collegium and on how judges should be appointed and whether parliament and whether government should have a role. So let's take it. In your opinion, should only a collegium of Supreme Court judges appoint judges to the High Court and the Supreme Court? What do voters think? 44% say yes, only a collegium of judges should appoint judges. They don't trust government or parliament getting involved. 23% say no, 33%, which is a very big number, are actually confused. It's ultimately a technical issue in terms of appointments of judges. So 1/3 don't have an opinion, but 44% say only a collegium should have a role in appointment of judges. Now, you know, the fact is, it may be imperfect, it may be imprecise, it may have problems, Anjali Bhardwaj, but 44% of the respondents say, "Aisa bhi hai, yahi theek hai. Let's not get anybody else and definitely not the government involved in this." There seems to be more faith, for good or for bad, in what judges would do than have political appointees trying to take decisions. Anjali.
I think, Rahul, that is very, very understandable. Also, if one were to recognize the fact that a very large majority of the cases in the courts do involve the government in one way or another. So I think that there is a very strong recognition from people that the independence of the judiciary in a democracy is of utmost importance. And finally, the judiciary has to have people's back. It has to make sure that whenever there is any violation of our fundamental rights, our constitutional rights, that the judiciary will function in an independent manner. Having said that, Rahul, and again over here, I want to bring back your transparency question, because I think that that's at the heart of all of this. Look, we do understand that independence of the judiciary is extremely important, but the problem has been that very often in the garb of and on the pretext of independence of judiciary, we have seen that the judiciary has been trying to hide behind a veil of secrecy, where we find that judges have been saying that because we need to be independent, we are a very special entity, therefore we don't want to be transparent. And I think at the root of the problem of trust, at the root of the problem that we are discussing in terms of even appointments, is the lack of transparency. Now, what is the transparency framework in our country? It's really governed by the Right to Information Act. And Rahul, you would know that the Supreme Court of India, the Judiciary of India, has been one of the biggest champions of the Right to Information and the Right to Information Act. And yet, when people have asked questions from the judiciary under the RTI law, people have really not been given information. There have been so many questions that have been asked about the collegium process. There has been, I am part of the campaign for judicial accountability and reforms. There has been a consistent demand to say that please make the appointment process transparent. And here, Rahul, I want to really tell your viewers that it is extremely important to really address the root causes of problems. If we want to keep jumping from one system to another in the hope that everything will go well, nothing will change if we go to the collegium, from the collegium to NJAC. We need transparency.
I think you make a very good point. And I want to put that to Sanjay Hegde. The fact that judges expect high standards from citizens or from government, but don't hold themselves to those high standards of transparency, of accountability. They have an opinion on everyone else without following high standards themselves. Sanjay Hegde.
Well, essentially, you're putting the Bible to me. Judge not, lest he be judged. So that is part of the problem. Judges do not drop in from the heavens. Judges have to the maximum extent possible, be transparent, and their working should be in a transparent manner. I do think that the judiciary would be well served if it had experienced communications professionals to explain things. The recent example is when the collegium recommendation was as to whether Justice Verma had been transferred or not. That was not readable to the layman. So yes, there has to be transparency, there has to be clarity, but there are certain things which you can't be transparent about. Many of these RTI applications sometimes are, please let us have access to the judge's notes. Please let us have access to this, that, various things. There is a certain amount of balancing act, and the judges themselves went to the judiciary on the judicial side when there was an order of the Delhi High Court saying that you have to disclose your assets. And it is to the credit of the judges when they examined it on a legal perspective, they said yes, they have to
But Hitesh Jain, respond to that question about the collegium, because you are arguing in favor of the National Judicial Appointments Commission, where the government also has a role in picking judges. But if you look at the responses in the voter from the citizens, they're saying no matter how good or bad, we'd much rather trust the judges to do this job much more than we trust the government.
Yes, and you know why?
See, we have the numbers,
just one minute. Hitesh, just 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
One by one, Sanjay Hegde, let Hitesh speak.
No, just one quick answer.
If you will look at the survey,
NJAC was supported both by the
33% of the people are not decided, and 23% are not supporting the collegium. So you have as high as 56% basically who are not supporting the categorical answer of collegium. Now, as we have discussed, look at the different panelists from where you come. Ultimately, you are saying on the quality of the appointment. Ultimately, they are saying some appointments, these are all like government appointments. Third, we are expecting that there is a lot of delay. Fourth, there is an acceptance that the system has failed. Now, when the system has failed, when there is a delay, when people do not have faith in the appointment of judges, do we do the same thing and arrive at the same result? Or we have to change the track and think differently? See, we had a system that was working till 1980. Then thereafter, this judges case, the judgment started, and the collegium, over the last 3 decades, you have seen the collegium system that is coming. Now, everybody is complaining about the collegium system. Now, I think instead of being rigid, we should allow a new system to also. There can be, we can all, I mean, this is something where there has to be consensus. I strongly believe this is not about BJP, Congress, or India Alliance or NDA. It is about the country. It is about the judiciary.
Okay, Sanjay Hegde wanted to make a quick counter on the issue of who should pick judges. Sanjay Hegde.
See, NJAC was supported both by the Congress as well as the BJP. Every set of politicians wants to have a control over judicial appointments. Now, my respectful answer as far as the collegium is concerned is it's like it's like a cricket team being selected by cricketers and not by the state associations, which are political bodies. Otherwise, you will have Rajiv Shukla and some of the other BJP people who are in the BCCI together getting into saying 2 of yours, 2 of mine. Let people of law select those who will judge the game.
No, but it's not that simple, a binary either, Sanjay Hegde. The fact is there is a lot of bhai bhatidawad, judges picking judges, judges picking people they know, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. It's not as if these judges are doing a spectacular job. So, of course, there are very serious reservations in governments getting involved, but it's not as if the judges are doing a fabulous job either.
Rahul,
they have... Are you asking me?
No, just 1 second. Let Sanjay Hegde complete. I'm coming back to you, Hitesh, in a moment.
Well, let me put it this way. They have done a reasonable job, and it's not as if when there was a period of government appointments, we did not have brilliant judges coming out of that. Justice Krishna Iyer was appointed by the government of the day. So was Justice Chinnappa Reddy. It's only when Mr. Ram Jethmalani said that there are 2 kinds of judges, those who know the law and those who know the law minister. It was a reference to the late Mr. H.R. Bhardwaj. It is at that stage that the judiciary took upon itself the idea that that consultation means concurrence, and then the collegium system came in, and that system has been working. There have been aberrations. See, as far as selection is concerned, you may not necessarily select the best of the best, but you select with some minimum standards. If you just leave it to an outside agency or abdicate it to the executive, then there may be no standards whatsoever.
No, but that's not what the idea was. The idea was never that only the government will pick. There will still be judges, including the Chief Justice, in the committee that decides. Hitesh Jain wants to make an argument. Hitesh.
Rahul, now look at the qualification for appointment of judges in the Constitution for the High Court and the Supreme Court. It is prescribed the qualification of minimum 10 years of practice in the High Court, or 10 years as a judges. Now, at what age they appoint the judges in the High Court? The unwritten rule is 45 to 48. In Supreme Court, when are they appointing? Between 55 and 59. What is the retirement age of the High Court judge? 62. What is the retirement age of the Supreme Court judge? 65. Where have you arrived that a High Court judge has to be appointed only at the age of 45 to 48? Where have you got about the criteria that only in Supreme Court, if you are going to be 55 and 58, the Constitution never provided the criteria. The Constitution only provided minimum experience. Now, if you have rulers of the countries in different, world across, if you'll see, there are leaders who have come at 40, 45. You look at Rajiv Gandhi, he was the Prime Minister at the age of 40. Now, if you can be a Prime Minister at the age of 40, then, this is the problem with the collegium, where they have devised their own set of rules. They have put their age limits. They do not follow the Constitution. And that is what the problem comes. It is not more about...
So, I want to also move the needle and keep coming back to the data and put that on our screen. In your opinion, to what extent is the Indian judiciary plagued by corruption? This really is at the nub of the current debate. Let's see how respondents view this question. How corrupt is the judiciary? A lot say 48% of the respondents. Now that's quite shocking. Half the respondents in this Sea Voter survey telling the surveyors that they think the judiciary is deeply plagued by corruption. 37% saying to some extent, which means they feel judiciary is corrupt to some extent. Not at all is only 8%. Only 8% think that the judiciary is the way it should be. 9% say they don't know, can't say. If you add these up, it's 85% of the total respondents who say that they think that the judiciary is either very corrupt or corrupt to some extent. Now that is a very big number. 8 out of 10 plus respondents, Anjali Bhardwaj, in this Sea Voter study say they think the judiciary is either very deeply plagued by corruption or to some extent plagued by corruption.
Absolutely, Rahul. And I think that this is really at the heart of how people perceive the judiciary. We know that in our country, there is corruption. Judicial corruption is also very widely recognized. Now, the problem here is, like I said, that the mechanisms for complaints, for filing complaints in the judiciary related to judges is really not the citizen-friendly mechanism. The way in which the complaints that are filed are dealt with is completely opaque. Now, in this particular case of Justice Verma, which has played itself out right now, I think there is a recognition and people are extremely happy to note that there is some information coming out. The Chief Justice of India has put out information on what the complaint was, what some of the findings so far have been, what the response of Justice Verma has been, and also the video and other kinds of information. But otherwise, if you see, even when complaints are made, those complaints are not there's no transparency in the way they are dealt, to the point that very often even a report is not shared with the complainant. Now, if you remember in the Justice Gogoi case, that was of course not corruption, but the judge sat as a judge in his own case, and the in-house report that finally came was not even shared with the complainant. And that is somehow also true when there are complaints of corruption. We all know that an FIR can't be filed against a judge unless there is a sanction that is obtained from the Chief Justice. Now, in a situation like this, I think there is a deep understanding that corruption is happening, and of course it's happening at different levels in our country, but the system seems to be totally broken to take care of it. Now, Rahul, let me say one more thing. I would urge you to go to the Delhi High Court website and click on the assets and liability button, and over there please click on Justice Verma's assets and liabilities and show to your viewers what you see. Essentially, the assets and liabilities of judges is a must-have for citizens to be able to have trust that there is no judicial corruption, because that's
no, but if he's got all this cash lying around, the assets are not declared assets.
Let me finish, Rahul. Assets and liabilities, if we have information, we will know whether their assets are proportionate to their known sources of income. Now, if you go and click on that button, you will see that Justice Verma's assets and liabilities are basically a dummy PDF, because the judges in our country have decided that they will decide whether they voluntarily want to declare their assets and liabilities or not. So look, how do you contain corruption? I'm not saying that if assets and liabilities are out there will be no corruption, but how do you make judges accountable? There has to be transparency. Unfortunately, what people are really beginning to understand is that yes, there is judicial corruption, there is no adequate system for tackling that corruption, and everything is somehow a secret. So if you say anything, it becomes contempt of court, and most of the time, even when complaints are made, nobody gets to know what happened. So there'll be something that one might hear for a short while in the media, and then no information at all.
And that's where I think that this Justice Verma case, Hitesh, becomes of paramount importance. If they paper over all the allegations and somehow they rebuke him privately but don't do anything publicly, it will very deeply erode whatever little faith people have left in the judicial system. Because here's a man who's been caught with his hand in the till, who's got cash lying around at home. If no action is taken against him, it completely erodes public faith in the judiciary.
Rahul, two facts. I agree that some action needs to be taken basis what will come out as a part of the inquiry. But you know, where people were concerned from 14 to 19, there was absolutely lack of any transparency or knowledge as to what was transpiring. This was an incident dating back on 14th. And for 5 days, there was absolute silence. And that is what made people worried, and people were asking the questions. Unfortunately, what happens is in this country, we just use this platitude, oh, independence of judiciary and all. Now, I think independence of judiciary cannot be self-proclaimed. It has to be earned by public trust. And how you handle a particular situation. Now, this was a classic case. For 5 days, there was no information at all. I mean, on the 6th day, something come. You cannot, transparency cannot be like any concession. Transparency cannot be concession. It is a duty. There has to be a proper manner. There has to be a proper process. And that is where the concerns of people are coming. And therefore, you have a high number of percentage of people who are complaining about the corruption in judiciary.
You make an important point. The absence of information and the fact that Mahima is saying exemplary action needs to be taken for citizens to have some modicum of faith that if a judge gets caught as being corrupt, having unexplained cash lying around, he can't just get away with it. You can't just get transferred back to your parent khada and after a while get on with the business of making judgments. If you've been caught and you need to be punished.
Now, my plight, Rahul, on your show is that if I speak politics, I'm accused of speaking politics when I'm called on your show as a political spokesperson. So, irrespective of...
You've only been speaking politics, so please go on. It's too late in the day to change tack now.
And yet accused by a fellow panelist of politicizing it. But I still continue to do it because I need to suffice my duty here. Let me just say that you compare two manifestos of the BJP and the Congress party of this last general election. And let me tell you what judicial reforms we talk about. And my source is one of your India Today reports only, where you have established the BJP Sankalp Patra speaks about One Nation, One Election, UCC, reforms in civil procedure and national litigation policy. And the Nyaya Patra of the Congress purports that we shall bring National Judicial Commission for appointment of judges. We shall address the shortage of judges and fill the vacancies in 3 years. We shall bring more diversity and inclusivity, more women, SCs, STs, OBCs in the judiciary. We shall allocate more funds to the judiciary, augment physical and technical. Allow me to complete.
No, but those are rhetorical arguments we are asking in a way. This is not for you to explain your Sankalp Patra. Ma'am, with respect, ma'am, you're speaking for very long. You're trying to filibuster and you're giving us your Sankalp Patra, which frankly is not linked to this debate. I'm out of time. I have only time left enough to be able to take you through the last question, which is about National Judicial Appointments Commission. Should the NJAC Act be passed again? Everybody has his own view, especially those in the legal system. What do the citizens of India think? 39%, that's almost 4 in 10 say yes, NJAC should come back. That's a fairly high level of approval. 18% say no, NJAC should not come back. But the big number there is 44% who say we don't know, we can't say. It's a nuanced technical issue which has massive ramifications, Sanjay Hegde. But frankly, the biggest number there is 44% who say they don't know, can't say. But the second big number is 39% who say yes, bring NJAC back.
Well, that 39% might include a lot of the judiciary themselves, because there have been many judges, including those who are on the NJAC bench, who had their doubts about the ultimate relief. You must remember that Justice Chelameshwar dissented from the NJAC judgment. There is also a feeling within the judiciary that, we get blamed for the appointments. Let the government send in whoever they want, and then we will train them. That may be a view. But yes, we have had experiences of strong governments. We would like the elite of the profession to voluntarily take up service. The judge's job is of service. A judge's job is where you have to live like a monk and work like a horse. And we do respect them for some of the sacrifices that many of them have done. We do not want to tar everybody with the same brush. It may be that a modified NJAC, which is not executive heavy or executive friendly, may pass judicial muster, but that's a thing in the future.
Okay, Hitesh, very quickly, final words.
See, 60 to 65% of the judges who come to the High Court and the Supreme Court, they come from the trial court. If we can have an exam on the lines of All India Judicial Services, from where the bulk of the judges in the pyramid can be appointed, I'm sure we'll get a better quality of the judges. NJAC or no NJAC, my personal view is it is the trial court where the common man is suffering, and that is where the quality of the judges has to get better. And this is like even Justice Oak yesterday spoke about the improvement of the judges at the trial court, and we have to address this systemic rot that is happening at the base of the pyramid.
Okay, here's what I wish to say in the end. A lot of what we've discussed during this edition of the Political Stock Exchange brings out in all its glory what people think is wrong with the judiciary, and frankly there's a lot that's wrong as well. But to tarnish everyone and to say sub BKONG, all judges are corrupt, that would be deeply unfair. So as you frame this argument in your mind, do keep in mind the fact that yes, it's quite clear some judges are corrupt and they may have cash lying around in their outhouses, which is terrible, and they need to be punished very strongly and sternly for it. But there are many who just do an honest day's job, and it's all kinds of people together who make up the profession as they make up all professions. And therefore bear that in mind before you just try and come to the conclusion that all judges are corrupt, because that would not really be fair at all. That being said, I want to thank all our guests for joining us on this broadcast. Hitesh Jain, thank you so much. Thanks also to Sanjay Hegde, Anjali Bhardwaj and Mahima Singh for joining me on this edition of the PSE. It's the opposition versus the Modi government over the Waqf bill. After Lalu Yadav joined an anti-Waqf protest, MK Stalin has joined the chorus against the upcoming bill. The Tamil Nadu Chief Minister says that the Waqf bill severely harms the rights of the Muslim community.
Cornered and divided after 3 successive assembly election defeats in Haryana, Maharashtra and Delhi, the India bloc has finally got an issue to regroup. The rivals of the BJP are becoming vocal in their opposition to the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024. The Tamil Nadu Assembly on Thursday passed a resolution against the proposed amendments to the Waqf Act.
வக்ஃப் வாரிய திருத்த சட்ட முன்வடிவினை வக்ஃப் அமெண்ட்மெண்ட் பில் 2024 முழுமையாக திரும்பப் பெற வேண்டும் என்று ஒன்றிய அரசை இப்பேரவை வலியுறுத்துகிறது என்ற தீர்மானத்தை நான் முன்மொழிந்து அமைகிறேன்.
Chief Minister M.K. Stalin called the bill a direct threat to the rights of minorities and the powers of the Waqf Board.
இது முஸ்லிம்களின் மத நிர்வாகத்தில் அரசு தலையிடுவதாகும். இது அரசு இந்த சொத்துக்களை கைப்பற்றுவதற்கான வாய்ப்பை உருவாக்குவதாக முஸ்லிம்கள் அச்சப்படுகிறார்கள்.
Even the AIADMK, which is in alliance talks with the BJP, backed the resolution. The BJP walked out of the assembly when the resolution was put to vote.
DMK is rattled, CM is rattled. They want to divide the people in the name of language. They want to divide the people in the name of state. They want to divide the people in the name of religion.
Many opposition parties have thrown their weight behind the protests being held by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. RJD leaders Lalu Yadav and Tejasvi Yadav attended the protest held by the Muslim body in Patna on Wednesday.
किसी भी कीमत पर हम लोगों का प्रयास है कि ये बिल पास ना हो. अगर एक होकर के हम लोग लड़े तो इंशाअल्लाह हम लोगों की जीत तय है.
The BJP called the protests an act of blackmail.
वक्फ के नाम पर कम्युनल ब्लैकमेलिंग के धंधे से होशियार रहने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि कुछ लोगों की आदत हो गई है कि पूरे वक्फ के सिस्टम को या वक्फ के एक्ट को उन्होंने जो है वो आसमानी किताब बना दिया है और कह दिया टच मी नॉट. वक्फ जो सुधार का बिल है वो संसद में पास होगा, उसे कोई रोक नहीं सकता.
देखिए, सरकारों पर यही एक दबाव बना करके ब्लैकमेलिंग लोग करते थे. अलग अलग समय में इन्होंने वक्फ के नाम पर तमाम प्रकार के उल जलूल फैसले लिए हैं, खास तौर पर कि वक्फ जिस लैंड को कह देगी कि उनकी है, उनकी मान ली जाएगी. हम भौचक हैं जी, ये कौन सा आदेश है?
The Waqf Amendment Bill seeks to amend the Waqf Act 1995 to change the way Waqf properties are managed in the country. With Pramod Madhav, Bureau Report, India Today.
This is where I wrap up the NewsTrack tonight. We have the political stock exchange on Tamil Nadu coming up tomorrow. So our team's hard at work trying to look at the impact of all that's been happening in the Tamil Nadu political battlefield. So do stay tuned for that tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. For the time being, for your time and your trust, thank you. Goodbye. Good night.